Hello, and welcome to Travelers Within. My name is Val Jon Farris, and I'll be your host and guide for SupraTakes, a collection of short videos showcasing high adventure stories from my life and expeditions I've hosted with my VIP clients. These are not your typical travel guide or echo tour clips, but rather deeply moving journeys into the world of personal growth and spiritual insight. My life's work is about guiding people into both the inner and outer worlds in a way that expands their ability to navigate the challenges in their lives and deepens their experience of gratitude and fulfillment. I achieve this by showing the way to destinations within the human psyche that elevate people's level of self awareness and consciousness. Grab your backpack and mountaineering gear because in this clip, we'll be climbing to the summit of greatness. Okay, before we begin our ascent, here's the travel itinerary or inner roadmap, if you like, the videos in this playlist are organized around. It's called the Awareness Sphere, and the clips perfectly illuminate each of its 12 pathways to its center, the super self, the core essence of our being and source of all our capabilities and capacities. By the way, this model is published in my book, Travelers Within, and you can find it on Amazon with the link I provide in the description below. Rather than following a linear format for presenting my super takes, as in 1 through 12, I'll jump around and showcase them randomly. You can choose your own order for viewing them from the playlist based on your interests. For my first high adventure story, I'll serve as your guide into the inner terrain of thou individuation, the ninth phase of the awareness sphere, as you can see on my model. This real life story is a cliff hanging glimpse into the transcendent power of humility, vulnerability, and belonging. Let's get started as we're about to climb to the summit of thou's greatness. A number of years ago, I was part of a mountaineering team that climbed to the summit of Mount Shasta in Northern California, a 14,000-foot ice climb that required special gear and well-rehearsed safety procedures. The ascent route we chose was shorter than others, but steeper and more dangerous due to crevasses and glacier fractures. In this picture, you can see us hiking in groups of 6 as we made our way to base camp at about 11,000 feet. Both base camp and the summit lie beyond the snowy peak in the distance. This photo was taken at base camp where we spent the night before our early morning ascent to the summit. We spent the remaining daylight reviewing recent maps of the terrain ahead and our ice climb safety procedures. Traversing mountainside glaciers requires steel crampons for the boots and ice axes for braking. For those unfamiliar with the term, braking is a rapidly deployed safety procedure used if a climber loses their footing on steep slopes. It involves grabbing the axe with both hands, flipping onto one side, and plunging the sharp metal tong into the ice. A firmly planted axe serves as an anchor and stabilizes the climber until they can regain their footing. And while ropes and carabiners were not needed for this climb, the glaciers awaiting us were known to approach about a 70-degree angle in some spots. This near vertical challenge required that we zigzag our way up the steep slopes in small untethered groups, anchoring ourselves every few hundred yards to rest and reassess our route. We didn't get much sleep that night because to make it to the summit and back before dark the following day, we needed to begin our ascent no later than about 3 o'clock in the morning. Dark and early the next morning, and under a full moon casting an eerie bluish glow, we gathered together in a tight circle and reviewed our ascent plans, double-checked our gear, and each of us vowed to be team players and strong links in our climbing chain. As the moon disappeared behind the terrain above, we secured base camp and began our ascent. At about 13,000 feet, and as the sun reflected off the icy slopes, we came upon a massive and deep crevasse. We traversed around its left edge and began our zigzag strategy above it to gain a safe distance. This was definitely one of the most dangerous parts of our expedition. One mistake or compromising incident by anyone on the team could mean sudden death. To grasp the size of this abyss, that thin ice extension pointing into the darkness is roughly the size of a human body. All went well as we zigged and zagged our way up the steep glacier until one fateful moment when the ice crampon on my left boot suddenly popped loose and I lost my footing. Falling backwards headfirst down the slope, I grabbed my ice axe to brake, but landed hard on my back, jarring it from my grip. In frozen terror, my life flashed before my eyes as I gained speed towards the crevasse. I was going to die. Then suddenly my body slammed up against something solid, knocking the wind out of me. Peering out through ice-covered goggles, I spotted dark images moving around and above me. Pulling the goggles from my face, I saw that my fellow climbers had formed a human net, catching me just a few yards before careening over the edge. I was in shock and totally numb. I was also totally vulnerable and humiliated. I had spent years being a strong and independent man, priding myself on not needing anyone's help, and here I was now completely helpless and unquestionably the weakest link in our climber's chain. Penetrating my moment of self-indulgence, voices flooded in. "We've got you, VJ. Hold on, buddy." And you know what I replied with? "Thanks, guys. I can take it from here." The words of a rugged individual, straight from the ego of a man who was determined to take care of himself at any cost. Then the actual cost came clear as pleas from my team. "VJ, stop squirming around and let us help you, or you're going to push us all over the edge." Wow. I have to tell you, that message got in. The reality of killing my fellow climbers so I could stay in control was too much to bear. Looking into their faces, I saw superimposed images of my father, brother, mother, sister, friends, and past relationships who I'd alienated with my stubborn independence. I reflected on the pain and frustration they must have felt by me not allowing them to support me. So many opportunities I had to accept the help of those who loved and cared for me, but no, I had to be in control and strong. And here were people who had just risked their own lives to save mine, and I was going to rip them off of that privilege and opportunity? How selfish and arrogant of me. As my team reattached my gear, stood me up, and reassured me that no harm had been done, feeling their care and acceptance was both nurturing and wrenching. My chest tightened and tears came to my eyes as I got another painful glimpse of how many times in my life I protected my vulnerability and shut people out. I would always tell myself, I don't need anybody, I can do it on my own. I justified my rigidity with the notion that I didn't want to burden anyone or put anyone out. But the deeper truth was that if I did open up to people, I would feel vulnerable and obligated to them. What an old and worn out story I'd convinced myself of. The moment we realize that our need for control is actually killing our aliveness is when we can finally let go and open. In that opening, my ego's indulgence and humiliation transcended and gave way to the inspiration of humility. The frozen armor of my rugged individualism finally cracked open and fell away, leaving me totally vulnerable and amazingly totally okay about it. Here, just a few hundred yards from the summit, on each side of me you can see two of the climbers who saved my life. As we turned uphill to make our final ascent, I found myself breathing into this new, higher elevation of self-awareness. While the air is thin at 14,000 feet, I had the realization that my inhaling and exhaling perfectly reflected the process of giving and receiving support. Exhaling represented the virtue of giving, and inhaling represented the vulnerability of receiving. The profound epiphany for me as we approached the summit of Mount Shasta, and which still lives within me to this day, is that being vulnerable and open to receiving support doesn't mean I'm weak, it means I'm human. At 14,179 feet, the atmosphere is an extraordinary crystalline blue color that embraces the curve of the Earth. The summit atop Shasta is a small rocky crater about 20 feet in diameter. 33 sunburned faces, grinning from ear to ear, sat together within the crater's embrace in an exchange of laughter and tears. After celebrating our joint accomplishment, we began the ritual of reading and signing the register book stowed atop most climbable mountains in the world. The one atop Mount Shasta is kept inside a green metal canister in a small nook under the crater's western crag. Each member of our team, like all those before us, took an opportunity to read and write dedications in the register. I was the last one to see it, and as I flipped through its yellowed pages, my eyes fell upon a dedication made by a climber way back in 1972. I'll never forget what he wrote. "Father, I'm standing at the top of Mount Shasta today because of the love and support you gave me as I was growing up. It's because of your love and encouragement that I was able to succeed. And although you lost your legs in the Korean War and have never been able to stand beside me, Father, I want you to know that today I stand on the top of this mountain for both of us. I love you with all my heart and all my soul, your son John." I closed the book, stood up, and walked to the crater's rim and took in the grandeur of the earth. Clutching the register to my chest, I experienced a deep, abiding compassion for all the world's fathers, sons, mothers, and daughters. I felt connected to every human being on this planet and every form of life in the entire universe. Just as my awareness sphere model maps out the pathway between the finite and the infinite, here I was actually experiencing it firsthand. While having my life saved was a profound opening for me, this was my transcendent moment that elevated me above and beyond my predictable ways of being and delivered me, mind, heart, and soul, into the infinite and omnipotent embrace of the superself. If you were moved and inspired by my transcendent experience, it tells me you have access to your core essence, the superself within you. You see, you and I have something extraordinary in common. Not only do we share in the privilege of being a son or daughter, mother or father, we also share in a much more expansive family of origin, one that embodies all of life everywhere. What a profound realization it is to experience oneself as more than just an individual, but as a family member of the entire human race, worthy of all our greatest accomplishments and equally guilty of all our worst crimes. If my high adventure story inspired you to join me for more Supra expeditions, I recommend reading my book, Travelers Within: Journeys into Being Human and Beyond. The reviews have been stellar, and my readers share that the combination of recounting my life adventures with my guidance into the terrain of the awareness sphere has changed their lives. I'll put a link in the description below. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this Super Take, give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel so you can receive notifications for future postings, which will include my live webcast invitations. Until next time, I offer this wise life traveling advice to you. Stay grounded, Keep your heart open, trust the process, and be with what is.